Hello, welcome to second session of Wyckoff series. I am Ankit Kumar. Today in this session we are going to discover bars, why and how to analyze bars. Before we start, we'd like to give you an heads up. Volume is an integral part of reading the chart. We will cover volume in the next session. Today we are only covering bars. Using bars in isolation may give good results or can be disastrous sometimes. So request you to watch the session 3 on volume after watching this session and use the knowledge of bars and volumes together. So let's begin with the today's session. So in the last session we have discussed about the HLC bars, which I am going to use in this series. So your HLC bar looks like this. It has 4 bits of data, and those are your highs, a low and a close, and the spread. The thing which is missing here is open. We don't really need an open to analyze the market. So while looking at the types of the bars in the next topic, we will see how or why we can skip open. So types of bars let's check the varieties of bars based on different criteria. Here we are observing based on close. Okay, so there are 5 types. There are 5 bar cut types which are based on close. First of them is referred as strong bullish bar. Okay, the strong bullish bar is a bar which closes near the highs. Okay, like this. That's your bar and the close is near the high of the bar. Now in the few candlestick examples, I have taken the same close. The close of each and every bar is same. The high and low of each and every bar is same. The only thing changing in this candlestick bar is your opening price. So here I am saying my opening price is here. Second case, my opening price was here, and my third case, I'm taking the opening price is here. Okay, opening price may give you what happens after the after the candle opens or after that particular time frame starts ticking. But the most important thing in this is the close. During the end of that time frame, where did my price reached? So even if you take open here or open here, for us it will not matter since we are only following closes. Okay, in this strong green bar, the first example, my price opens below here, it went up and closes on the highs. Only buying activity was seen. Whereas on the second bar, my price close opened here, went down, which indicates a selling activity, then reversed from the lows and went and closed at the highs. That refers to buying activity. From both this situation, we can clearly say my buying activity is greater than my selling activity. In the third case, my price opened here, went down, closes not closes, price opens here, went down to make a low, then reverses to close near the highs. So here that's my selling activity because price was moving down, and that's my buying activity because price was moving up. Again my buying activity is greater than selling activity. So when we say my bar is closing near the highs, it simply means during the close of the candle. During the close of the candles, my buying activity was dominating. That's all information we need or we take into consideration while using HLC bars. We don't observe whether my selling activity was there and how much directly. We take that into consideration in a bit different way. We will come to that in the later part of the video. So that's your first type. I hope the opening price and the HLC bars will not affect that much in your thinking. Now second type is fairly bullish bar, where my price, the close price is just off the highs but above the middle of the bar. It's not closing near the highs, it closing off the highs like this. You can see this red bar is also considered as fairly bullish, or this strong green bar or a doji like bar is also considered as a fairly bullish if my close is just off the highs but well above the middle line. Okay, so instead of taking these many bar candles into consideration, we can only observe whether my bar closed, and based on that we can identify which type of bar it is. Now third type is referred as neutral bar or balanced bar. Okay, where we close near the middle, at the middle of the bar. Okay, that's your bar. From highs to lows is the size of the bar, and my closing is near the middle of the bar. It means a neutral or balanced bar. In this you can see, in this last example or first example, my bar is closing or opening near the highs or near the lows, but it is closing in the middle. And if you analyze this, after opening my buying activity was seen, then from this level to the lows my selling activity was there, and then from this to this my buying activity again triggered. So even though this bar has more of selling activity than a buying activity, but at the end my price closed with a buying activity. So in other words, you can say my price may got rejected from the lows. So in that situation, you won't be able to clearly say whether my bulls are in control or my bears are in control. So that's why this makes a confusion. To avoid the confusions, we simply say it's a neutral bar or a balanced bar. Okay, but when we add volume ka context with it, we will get a better idea that whether the neutral bar is more inclined towards bull, or whether this neutral bar is more inclined towards the bear. So that's your third type. Fourth type is fairly bearish, where my close is below the middle but off the lows. It's not near the lows. The price has moved up from the lows, but it's not able to cross the middle of the bar. Such type of bars we refer to as bearish bars. Again, in terms of candlesticks, color of the bars may give sometimes a wrong indication. So be aware of that, whether my bar is closing, what's the location of the close of my candlestick bar. Then last is your strongly bearish bar. Forgive me for the colors. Uh, this should be your red bar. Uh, this should be my red bar. All bars should be red. Even this is wrong. The bar should close near the lows. like this. Somewhere near the lows it should close. So a strong red bar which is opening near the highs and closing near the lows. Okay, actually this whole diagram is wrong, so let me do it manually for you guys. A strong bearish bar looks like this. Okay, where my bar will be like this, a complete red bar, or a bar which can be like this with an wick above it, or a bar can be like this with a wick above it. Just exactly reverse of this what is shown here. My close will be same, whereas my opening price of the candle may differ. So if my close is near to the lows, then I'll say it's a strong bearish bar. Now it's not like a hard rule. That's my bar, and if it closes something like here as well, we will still consider it near the lows. If let's take an example where that's my middle, and if my bar instead of closing here, it is closing well above that level, somewhere here. In that situation, I'll say it is well off the lows but below the middle line, so it is fairly bearish. Whereas if my bar closes near the lows, then I'll say it's a strongly bearish bar. To summarize this, these are our 5 types of bars. Strong bullish bars which will close near or at the highs. Fairly bullish bar which will close just below the highs but above the below the highs but above the middle line. Neutral bar is a bar which will close at the middle of the bar. Right? Fairly bearish bars will be a bar which is closing below the middle but off the lows. And lastly is your strong bearish bar which is closing near the lows of the bar. Okay, so these are your 5 types which we will use very extensively while discussing the Wyckofian the charts based on Wyckoff. So that's your bar types based on the close. Now second classification which we use is based on spread. Spread means, let's consider a bar which is closing off the highs. Okay, so in this, that's my low, that's my high, low, and the distance between high and low, we refer this as spread. In candlesticks term, you can say the range of candle. The range of candle is nothing but your spread, size of candle in other words. Okay, so based on the spread, now we will define bars in 3 types. These 3 types are as follows. First is your wide spread bar. Second one is your average spread bar. And lastly, we will have a narrow spread bar. Okay, now here how will you decide whether the bar has a wide spread or narrow spread? To do that, you have to look on the left side of that bar. Maybe few bars, like there is no fixed rule how many bars you can see. It's all contextual. It depends how you look at the chart or how the chart is presented in front of you. So in this particular example, we are taking these many bars under consideration. We will observe these many bars. We will start from A and we'll go till N and define what kind of bars they are. So let's move on to the other slide and let's name them. So this is my context for the first bar A. Based on the context, I can clearly see that my A bar has a longer spread or wider spread compared to previous few bars. So I'll simply say my A bar is an example of wide spread bar. Similarly, now if I observe my B bar ka spread is somewhat equal to my A bar ka spread. So my B bar also becomes wide spread bar. Now if I observe C, obviously C is less than A or B, whereas the spread of C is kind of equivalent to these bars. So I can say my C bar is an average spread bar. My bar D, as you can see, bar D, bar F, both bars are relatively smaller compared to these previous bars. So I'll say my bar D and bar E are narrow spread bars. Similarly, now bar F. Now here in the situations a confusion will arise. This is my bar F ka size, that's my bar C ka size, and that's my bar B ka size. We said bar B is an wide range bar, bar C is an average range bar, whereas bar D is an narrow range bar. So should I classify my bar F as average range or narrow range bar? It completely depends on yourself, right? But if you see the context few bars before that, if I see the few bars before that, I can identify these first three bars, ABC bars. These first three bars are the widest range and that's the smallest range, and F and G bar comes somewhere in between. So with that regard, I'll say my F bar and G bar as the average spread bar. Notice, while considering A and B, we looked at this many bars. Whereas while considering F bar and G bar, we are now looking at these many bars. So it all depends from your perspective how you want to see it. But the key point here is always give preference to the bars in the recent price action. So now for bar H, I can see these many bars. Based on these many bars, those are your narrow range bar. Comparatively, those are your wide range bar. Comparatively with respect to H I am talking about. So in that regard also, I can put my H in average spread bar. Whereas if I increase my point of view from this point, then I can say these are my wide spread bars, these are my narrow range bar, and this bar is slightly lesser, not much, but slightly lesser than this. So if my G is an average, my H can be considered as an average bar. Okay, then I bar ka spread is almost equal to this. So we will take my I bar as average spread bar. Whereas now if we check for the bar J, we will check the context behind it like this. Compared to previous bar, the range of this bar is much higher. So based on that regard, we will say my bar J is a wide spread bar. Based on this many bars from D to K, I can simply say my K bar is a narrow spread bar. Again, the size of J and the spread of L are almost same. It's look like they are same. So in that regard, I'll put my L bar into widespread bar, and then M and N we can take them as average spread bars, right? So there is no hard and fast rule to define the bars based on their spread. Okay, they should be seen with a context to the left. Okay, what is the recent bars are look like, and based on that how my current bar looks like. Okay, so now if we mix these two things together, let's take an example of this bar. You can say this is my strong bearish bar, that's my strong bearish bar, with in terms of spread, so with wide spread. So now I am defining my bar in terms of their strength as well as in terms of their spread, which will give the moment ka idea. So here the strength is strongest and the moment is like wide. This indicates that my sellers are active here. There is supply in the market. That's how you will analyze a single bar. Okay, let's take another example. Let's take an example where we will take this bar, L bar. Okay, somewhere this is the middle and my price is closing off the lows. So I'll say this is my fairly bearish bar. And what about the spread? Spread, you can see based on the previous few bars, it's a wide spread bar. Again, my strength is slightly bearish, whereas the moment is wide, right? So based on this, you can say sellers are still present, in the market. Notice based on this bar ka structures how we are changing our statements. When we analyze this bar, we say like we said sellers are active, whereas during this up move, after looking at this bar, now we are saying sellers are still present, they are not dead yet, they are not exhausted yet, right? And even when we add the context of volume to it, we will get a more clear picture. That's why at the beginning of the video I requested you to refer the next session on volume, based on which you will get the better idea of reading these bars. So let's go on to next variety or next type, where we define based on the direction, as in where my current close is depending on previous close. If my current close is above the previous close, I'll refer it as my up bar. If my current close is below the previous close, I'll simply refer it as down bar. Whereas if my current close is near to, I'm not saying exactly, I'm saying near to previous close, then I'll refer it as a neutral bar. So these are few examples where my current close moving higher. These all are examples of my up bar. In down bars example, we have my current close is moving lower than previous close. Whereas here in neutral bars, my closes are near to each other. There can be bit here and there, that's fine, because in ideal market you will not get an ideal situation. In real market you will not get an ideal situation. But you can modify your statements based on your context. So that's your third type of variety. So let's consider an example of this pattern. This we will study in detail in the upcoming videos. This is called as 2-bar reversal, or simply 2BR. If I analyze this second bar compared to the first bar, my second bar has wide spread, right? Based on the closing is near the highs, so I can say is a strong bullish bar, and also it's an up bar. So if I combine these three together, I can simply say this bar is a strong bullish up bar with wide spread. This way I can form a statement to understand what my bars are looks like. Okay, so as you all know, I shared this practice example already with you guys yesterday and told you to arrange these 2-bar combos in most bearish to bullish sequence. Means you have to find the most bearish of these first, and your last should be your most bullish one. So let's analyze this one by one. How do we read them? So that's your first bar. Okay, this bar is closing off the lows, means fairly bearish. The close is below the previous close, so it's a down bar, and spread is comparatively higher, so it's a widespread bar. So you will define this combo at A as fairly bearish down bar with wide spread. Similarly, in second, we will see the size is almost same. That's why average bar close is below the previous close. That makes it down bar. But the close of this bar is near the middle. So we will say this is neutral or balanced bar. It's one and the same thing. Okay. Now let's move on to the next one. Next one is closing near the highs. So it's a strong bullish bar. Close is above the previous close, up bar, and spread is almost same, so we will say average spread. Now next bar, this one. Close is near the middle, close is near to the previous close, and the spread is narrow. So this will be a balanced neutral bar. Let me get that point. Okay, that's your balanced neutral bar. Balanced, why balanced? Because close is in the middle. Comparing with previous close, current bar close is near to that. Right? That's why I'm saying neutral bar may confuse you. That's why instead of neutral at this particular stage, we are using the word balanced just to avoid the confusions. And the spread is very much narrow from this bar. It's almost 1/3 of the previous bar. So definitely it's a narrow spread. Okay, let's move on to the fifth bar. Again, you can see it's a balanced neutral bar with narrow spread. Now, question is, does it look like a balanced bar? Answer is obviously no. This is not a balanced bar. That's your strong bearish bar. Strong bearish because it's closing near the lows. Current close is compared to the previous close, near to the previous close, and range is narrow. So we have a narrow spread. Then bar F. Again closing near the lows. So it's a strong bearish. Close is slightly above the previous bar. So you can say it's an up bar and size of the bars are same. So it's an average bar. Now next is your closing near the highs. Right. In this case, just observe carefully. That's my middle. Closing is of the highs. So here if you say it's not a strong bar but a fairly bullish bar, then it won't be wrong. It is still correct. But looking at the context of previous bar, you can see strong buying is there. Right? It's a strong bullish widespread bar. So based on the context, now if I say it's a fairly bullish bar, then I may be misreading the charts. So that's why here we are saying this bar as a strong bullish bar, up bar because close is above previous close and the spread is narrow. So based on the context of previous bar, I'm modifying my statement. I'm getting the clarifications for my doubt. I don't know whether to call this as off the highs or near the highs, right? Because it's like middle ka midpoint. That this line is the middle of the whole bar, and this, the closing level, is the middle of this upper half. If it's at the middle, sometimes it will be confusing to say that whether it's a fairly bullish bar or a strong bullish bar. So in that situation, we will take help of the previous context. I hope this clears the point. Now next bar, this H strong bullish up bar with average spread. Now this bar, somewhere here I have my middle. Okay, and my close is just near to the middle ka middle. Like if I take this, my somewhere middle will come somewhere here. Okay, so now should I call it as a fairly bearish or strongly bearish, because on the context we have a narrow range bar. Comparatively, this is a narrow range bar closing at the middle, right? So here I do not have, basically it's your market is in your balanced state, neutral state. From this bar we cannot say whether my sellers are dominating or buyers are dominating, right? But after this bar, when this bar appears and closes at a point where it makes a confusion whether to call it as a fairly bearish or strongly bearish, then that time we have to make certain decisions, right? And that decision will be made based on how the next bar prints. Okay, let me give you some examples on this. So let's say my next bar forms like this, and this closes near the lows. If this is the case, then I'll say this bar is my fairly bearish bar, because after this much of selling activity, buyer still had a strength to move it up and retrace to the 50% of the previous bar, right? And this will only happen when my bears, my sellers, are not that strong. If they are not that strong, then in that situation it's easy to say that they are fairly strong because they managed to close the price near the lows of the bar. Okay, let's take another example where I am having a bar like this. Same, this one here and this one here. In that situation also, I'll say this is my fairly bearish bar, because if this is a strong bearish bar, means my sellers are very much dominating, then they should have managed to get a follow through, a close below the low or near the lows of this previous bar, right? But when we see a bar like this, a narrow range bar, a narrow range balanced bar, which is closing near the previous close, means where is the follow through? If there is no follow through, means we can interpret that my sellers are there, they are not that strong, or maybe they are absorbing some demand first before moving down. So if they are absorbing, means they do not have any intentions to move down right now. First they'll absorb all the demands like this, and then a big spike will come, if at all they have left any energy after absorbing all the demand, right? So whenever you have confusion, you have to see the context of the previous bar as well as context of the next coming bar. So this was your you can say a practice exercise which we shared in the group. Many of you give the answers to it. Now just re-look at your what you have thought, like जो भी आपने सोचा था, whatever you have thought while giving that sequence, rethink it. Let's observe whether there are some changes or not. Learn by yourself, because unless and until you don't do practice, you will not be able to learn yourself. Okay, and the correct answer to this will be shared in the in our Q&A session. Okay, so that's it for the bars. In the next session we will see volumes. Volumes will change most of the things how we read bar. Like we learned how to read bar today, right? But when we add volume to it, a strong bearish bar may not look bearish if volume is not there, right? A fairly bearish bar looks bullish if a huge amount of volume is there. So it all depends, like volume will change everything. These definitions are there, they are not wrong, but when we add the context of the volume to it, the things will start changing. They'll not look they'll not वो like जो दिखता है वो होता नहीं. So volumes add करने के बाद में you will understand that the bars which we see, which we define, are not really behaving the way they are supposed to, because volumes changes the definition. So hope next session will be very interesting to learn volumes, and in the next session we will start with bar by bar analysis as well. I'll tell you what is bar by bar analysis. Q&A on bars will be conducted on Monday, that is coming Monday at 10 p.m. in night. This session will be of 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any query or doubt, you can post your queries to me on Telegram or on Twitter. My handle on the both of these social platforms is same, sassy_Ankit. If you want to join the group, you can join the group. The group name is Traders Discussion Group, or this is the link of the group. You will also find the link in the description below. If you like what is taught here, do press a like button, or also do a comment. It is a way to get the feedback from you guys, and maybe sometimes to keep motivated myself. So thank you for today. We'll see you in the next session. God bless you all.